I'm Marisa Norcross.
And I'm Dave Freund, and this is The Next Page. Hey, Marissa.
Hey, how's it going?
It is going terrific. It's just, the summer it's kind of flying by very quickly.
Yeah.
But it's been a beautiful summer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had some hot weather, but like today, the day we're recording this, it's beautiful. I'm looking out the window here in my office at home, and there is blue sky, not a cloud in the sky, and it's like 79 degrees and breezy. It's perfect.
It is. It's been
San Diego weather.
Yeah, exactly. It really has been.
So are you getting some time at the pool?
Yes. Oh, yes. We've had such great weather. We're pretty much swimming every day.
That's terrific.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have some very dear friends that had a pool, and when my grandkids were visiting, Silas and Lily, one day my wife and I went over with them just to take them for a swim for about an hour. And boy, is that a nice thing to have available.
Yeah, and hopefully you've been getting out on the boat.
I have. I spent, really some nice time on my vacation on the boat, and now, by the time this airs, it will have passed, but I'm getting the boat ready for the Antique Boat Show.
Mm-hmm.
So, trying to clean the old girl up.
I'm bummed I probably won't make it to see the boats this year. Because
it'll be hard for you to get around.
Yeah, and that's right at my due date, so I don't think that would be a good place to have a baby.
I don't think so. And really, I would hope for your sake that you can have the baby delivered by then, just to shorten the the difficult days, so to speak.
Yes.
But I think, I think we might have mentioned on one of our podcasts that I had our 8th grandchild was born, right?
Yes, we mentioned it, yeah.
So, yep. It's hard to tell when we're recording ahead to make up for your maternity time. So
maybe she'll have her first boat show this year.
Well, the boat show dinner that Saturday night, I ordered the tickets for my son and daughter-in-law. So my guess is, and for Noah, her big brother. So my guess is she'll be there. Yeah.
Oh, good.
And one of the interesting things they're doing with boats now is they're less focused on these boats looking like museum pieces and more looking like just boats that had good, they call it the patina, the natural wear of a good boat. So I'm not quite as concerned that she doesn't look quite as pretty as we would like her to, but you know what? She gets used, and we're really glad for that.
Good.
But that's not what we're but what we are talking about, I was inspired from boats.
Yes.
So in the email that went out this morning entitled Inspiration Point, I got that from Classic Boating Magazine, where at the end of every episode of Classic Boat, or issue, not episode, every issue of Classic Boating, there's on the inside back cover is something called a feature called Inspiration Point. And really it's very, I shared one with you before we started recording. They're very simple. They're just these inspirational topics, whether it's talking about kindness, whether it's encouraging a person to pursue their faith, whatever it might be. It's just nothing at all related to work or boats, nothing related to boats, nothing related to restoring them or finding parts for them, which, believe me, can be a really tough thing to find parts for boats that haven't been made in 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just to help you set your mind into a better perspective. And it reminded me of some things you and I mentioned on our podcast several weeks ago, and that was that, the title of Chief Encouragement Officer, or, which would be another title that could go by CEO.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about that, how much time and money do we spend in our organizations on trying to come up with ways to incentivize, and we try to do employee engagement surveys, and we're trying to get productivity up. We're doing lean initiatives, this and that. But how much how much inspiring do we do personally as leaders with the people that report to us? And when I look back on my 12 years as a senior executive, I think I did very little encouraging and inspiring. Yeah, I would have the company meetings where we'd meet out in the shop, and I would tell them how great things were or how rough things were. But I'm really speaking here about one-on-one, knowing the people well enough to walk up and say, hey, have you ever thought about trying this? I think this might be something you're really good at.
Well, and I think a lot of
think,
us are probably conditioned to think that doing that is, it's fluffy, or it's,
right.
it's soft, and it's not required or whatever. But I think we really need to start looking at encouragement and inspiration the same way we look at process improvement, and,
Exactly.
employee performance, employee engagement, because it seems to be like it does have a correlation to innovation and functionality of an organization.
Clearly,
Mm-hmm.
if we really expect to be able to get people to strive beyond what they think it's possible to do, we have to give them this courage. And that really was what encouragement means. We're giving courage to someone who doesn't have it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as we think about that, when we try to figure out, well, how do we encourage them? Encouragement's not the same thing as motivation. Motivation is a very we're motivating a person that already believes they have the skills to do something.
Mm-hmm.
But encouragement is going a lot deeper. It's saying, I believe you can do this. It's believing. So if we're going to encourage a person, we have to believe in them. And we have to believe that they have a skill or an ability that they don't think they have.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to say, you should try this.
Right.
Because I think you'd be good at it.
Right.
And that's sorely lacking, I believe, in our organizations today.
Well, and in your
post,
you mentioned the question, how do you know if someone needs encouragement? And you
right.
So
if they're breathing.
Yeah, if they're breathing, then they need encouragement.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And think about that. Are they breathing? All of us need it.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is there's so many discouraging things going on every day. Think about the media. Nothing in the media is positive these days. Nothing, let's say that the employment rate, the unemployment rate is very, very low, which is a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but yet we can't. That also means that there aren't a lot of people to fill the jobs. So the media isn't talking about the benefits of a low unemployment rate. They just talk about, companies can't find people. So, all right, maybe we can't find the people that we need. What are we doing about it? Let's encourage innovation. Let's encourage new ideas, like the things that PEDB is doing with the P-TECH program.
Right.
In the city of Syracuse and Auburn. So that to me is the encouraging piece versus what our media tells us, which is so discouraging.
Mm-hmm.
We all we hear about, and some of it is real. There are real problems. The other day, I was sharing this with my family. I went into Wegmans to pick up a prescription, and a gentleman in front of me in a scooter type of thing. So he had trouble walking. His copay was $205.
Wow.
And I was, I wish that I would have been more on top of it, because I could tell by looking at him, he wasn't a person where this was going to be an easy bill to pay, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that I would have been thinking and find a way to try to, help him with his copay type of thing, but I didn't think about it at the time. And so I come home and I'm really down in the dumps about how horrible our country is, because we, and I think it's a problem that we have a copay that a retired person would need to come up with that amount of money. But my son Tim said, that's the result of having a country where our healthcare is so good that we're keeping people alive much longer than they ever have in the past. So he was looking at it from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
He would look at it from the standpoint of, we have these expenses because we've addressed this piece of the puzzle of how do we keep people alive longer. So now, and then encouraging me, so how do we fix the other part of the problem?
Right.
So rather than just complaining, how do we fix it?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's the key, taking us back to the inspiration point. We have those problems in our businesses. How are we dealing with them? Are we looking at them in a pessimistic way or an encouraging way? Or an inspiring way?
What would you suggest realistically to someone who's identified that they aren't doing this, that they aren't necessarily an inspiration point to their employees or to their team members, that they're not encouraging people. How do you recommend someone go about implementing this into the way they lead in a genuine manner?
I think the first thing that they need to do, this is going to totally shock you, I believe that leader needs to begin a gratitude journal specific about their employees.
Mm-hmm.
Begin to write down, if you're a team lead, if you're a supervisor, if you're a manager, if you're a president, the people that are your direct reports, begin to write down positive things that you're grateful for about each of those people. And let's say I've got a marginal employee that comes in every day. I am grateful that they come in every day. And what's going to happen is, it's like Dave Ramsey said at Live to Lead last year. You have to choose to love the people that work for you. It's not an option.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be a leader, you have to love them. It's kind of like being a parent. We have to choose to love our children. And that doesn't mean we like them all the time, but it does mean that we love them. And so I think by making that mental shift to what they can't, what's going well in our relationship with them, that helps us begin to see things where we can be more inspiring and encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't know if you'll remember back, this was a couple months ago. I did one on passion.
Yep.
I wrote on passion, and we did a pilot. So the key with the issue with passion is there has to be a curiosity, an engagement, spending the time, and that's going to result in passion.
Mm-hmm.
So if we really want to be passionate about this employee and about inspiring them and encouraging them, I have to be curious about what are their likes, their dislikes, their gifts. We need to help them find their giftedness.
Right.
Maybe they don't know. And if we can help them find their giftedness, that's what they're going to be exceptional in. So now I find that, so let's say we have an employee that is working as a receptionist. But their giftedness is really in technology and systems. They find ways to speed up our processes. Well, I need to find the opportunity. I need to help them cultivate and develop those skills by finding the opportunities for them to engage in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be that they're only a marginal employee or an average employee at being a receptionist because that's not their passion. So if we can help find their passions, we're going to help them find their passions, help them find their giftedness. We're going to find all the things we need to do to encourage them and to inspire them. So, I know I shocked you when I said start the gratitude journal for your employees, but that both changes the mindset.
Right. And then that makes perfect sense because, at the end of my question, I specifically said how to do it in a genuine manner because, people can pick up on when you're trying to fake it.
Right.
Or just trying to check a box. So I think that sounds like a great start.
And so what that's going to do for us, that's going to help us see actually what their gifts are and help us recognize their potential. Because the greatest responsibility of the leader is to raise the abilities of their team members so that they all reach their full potential. So once we begin to focus on the positive with them, we can praise actual things that are taking place.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be, I'm going to specifically praise that employee for their attendance and their dedication to the company. And then I'm going to be looking for what's the potential outside of that none of us recognize yet. And then I have to acknowledge that potential. I see this as a giftedness that you have, and you can see it where people work on ways of making their job easier. If they're gifted in a certain area, that will become very, very evident.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm acknowledging the potential, and then I'm giving them a specific challenge. I don't want to set them up for failure, so I'm going to try to set them up for success. I believe you could be exceptional at this, and here's why. So I got to tell them why, And then I have to say, how can I help you experiment in this area to see if there's a giftedness there that we haven't recognized yet.
Right.
And so again, it's being grateful, which changes my mindset, which will help me see what's actually going on. Then I'm going to praise and acknowledge the potential. I praise what's the actual thing that's happening. I help them acknowledge the potential that I see. And then I give them specific challenges to raise their abilities in areas where I believe they're gifted.
And this kind of leads
that really gets them going.
To my next question, which is,
sure,
on the flip side, what about like receiving and acting upon that encouragement and inspiration?
So, if I understand your question, so my boss isn't doing it for me. Is that right?
No.
Okay.
So assuming that now you've got this boss who, is now encouraging you and inspiring you, how can you recognize that and like harness it and
sure.
do something, and act upon it?
Yes. Okay, good. So I'm glad you clarified, because I was going down a different path. So this has me referencing, I was listening to a podcast this morning, which is another book that I need to read. But within each one of us is this desire to explore and experience new things. So, and I forgot what they called it. There was actually, it's like a hunting type of mindset where we love to try things we've never done. We always feel that we need to accomplish something type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I need to do is I need to then, if my boss is recognizing something in me, I need to lean in and say, tell me more. Help me understand exactly what you're seeing. And then ask them for advice, for mentoring, for coaching, and just try it. If somebody's recognizing something in you, you owe it to them to try to exercise that giftedness and pay back that trust. It's kind of, so I'm gonna give you a faith example just because it's what comes to mind, but it can easily work into a temporal one or a work one.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody one time said that my giftedness is God's gift to me. My potential is God's gift to me. What I do with it is my gift back to him. So if my boss is, and I'm not in any way saying your boss is a god by any means, but if your boss recognizes potential in you, you owe it to her to exercise that potential. That's what you give back to them. And really what's going to happen is this becomes this encouragement, affirmation kind of cycle that takes place. They recognize potential in you. You begin you're sometimes acting on their beliefs, not your own. You may not really think you can do it yet, but they do. So, okay, can you help me do it? And then you begin to do it, and they see that you're really taking seriously their encouragement. So you want to win, you want to acknowledge their praise of you, and this cycle just continues to develop and build, and you really feel energized, and you want to go to work. You want to please your leader because they believe in you. So did I answer your question?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now let's talk about where I thought you might be going when our leader doesn't recognize our giftedness and doesn't give us encouragement. So this is where we really need to make sure we're surrounding ourselves intentionally with people who will. I think I'll pull in MACNY, our councils. Getting around people that have a mind toward success, that are going to encourage us. I shared with you before we began recording of the example in a book called Big Potential by Sean Achor. So Sean Achor wrote the book The Happiness Advantage, and he realized that he only had part of the story told. So he's now working on, he finished this other book called Big Potential. And in this book, it talks about fireflies. And somebody in 1935, some guy that was in Indonesia who was late to get back to a base camp, ended up having to travel up a river after dark, which you never wanted to do because the way they put it was all the predators come out after dark.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, he was looking at these mangrove trees along the river, and he thought they were getting struck by lightning. But as he got closer and he observed what was going on, it wasn't. These were lightning bugs that were landing on the mangrove trees in such numbers, and then they would kind of glow, that luminescence that we see from our lightning bugs that we have here in our summer evenings. They would all be glowing at once, and it literally looked like the tree was being struck by lightning. Now, apparently, nobody believed him when he came back to the States, but apparently there's a place in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee, a small town, where these lightning bugs will congregate the same way. And the interesting thing is that we all know that they light up so that they can find a mate.
Mm-hmm.
But the reproductive success when they're by themselves just flying around our yards is 3%. If they congregate because they can see each other so much easier, it's 82%.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about this, 79 percentage points higher success rate because they're around others that are illuminating at the same time so that they can see each other. And I just think that that's an amazing reality. So let's say our boss isn't one. Let's say we got a boss. We work for a boss, not a leader. Find others that can help us, that can help recognize our potential and help us grow. And it's great if you have a company that invests in you. It's great if you have a company. I was at a company this morning where I'm coaching 4 people. It was supposed to be 3. Then somebody else said, hey, I think I could benefit from that. And the company said, sure. So they're paying the money to develop.
Mm-hmm.
You may have to pay some of your own money.
Mm-hmm.
You may have to, maybe you have to pay your own individual membership, let's say at MACNY, which is, what is it now, 209? 209. I thought it was 209, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you get a lot for that. And I'm not saying that to sell individual memberships. I'm just saying, what are you willing to invest in your future?
Mm-hmm.
If you went to college, how much did you spend on your degree? And how much are you still paying, let's say, on that?
Probably a lot.
Yeah. So what are you doing to make the most of that degree?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll have to invest in yourself.
Right.
And, so what about the fact about your boss? Forget about your boss. Your boss may never get it. But the reality is that if you find ways to get people who will inspire and encourage you, you may end up being your boss's boss.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can be the encourager. I know everybody thought I was going to say, then you can fire them. No, then you can be the encourager to help them become a better leader, to move from a boss to a leader.
Mm-hmm.
So this inspiration, this is huge. And I've seen too many organizations where they're trying to drive improvement. And I said that in my email. I thought my goal was to drive revenues up and costs down. No, my role was to inspire my team, and the result of that would have been rising revenues and reducing costs.
Right.
So.
Good. And I know
we all need.
Next week we're going to talk about, kind of in a similar area, reverse inspiration.
Yeah. Reverse inspiration,
mm-hmm.
which is huge, which as soon as I finished the inspiration point email, I thought, ooh, there's another piece we need to talk about.
Right.
And so, I want to encourage people, read listen to next week's podcast, because you're going to find out that if you're the one doing the inspiring, you get a lot more out of it than you think you did
mm-hmm.
or would. So I think we wrapped up.
Yeah.
Any more questions for me? Did I miss anything?
No, you answered all my questions.
Okay, good. So, any special food plans?
Any special food plans?
I was going to get to food sooner or later.
No.
No?
Nothing
okay.
special.
Oh.
I have some plans for a glass of wine once the baby is born.
All right.
But
Well, you know what? Once you're able to drink that glass of wine, send me a text and I will drink one as well.
Yes. Yes, a celebratory glass of wine.
Exactly. So just for our listeners' sake, what are our plans when you're gone?
So while
because we don't want to put a microphone in the delivery room, so
right. So as we've mentioned on the podcast already, we've been doing some pre-recording just to get us ahead. So, for example, by the time you're listening to this is August, and so we're trying to record a few ahead, and then we've got some guests lined up. For into the fall season. So
great.
We've got some people that we've mentioned on here before. We've got your nephew coming on board at some point to talk about
finding your why.
Finding your why, right? He is our resident PhD psychologist, right?
Yep. I believe so.
We're gonna have my mom do it. My mom will be coming on. We've mentioned her a couple times to talk about law of attraction. We've got
awesome
MACNY's president and CEO, Randy Wolkin, coming on to talk about leadership, present, future leadership. We've got a couple other staff members from MACNY, including someone from your team on the training side. Hillary, she'll be joining us on a few different topics. And
great.
Julianne, yep, she will be talking about community engagement and corporate social responsibility, which kind of feeds into our inspiration here. We've got you've got your dad, so we've got parents from both sides supporting our podcast now, and I'm really looking forward to listening to that because your dad's great. And he he's got so much wisdom.
He's had so much experience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, managing plants for so many years, and just the stories that he's going to have. We may have to. He may have so many stories. We may have to spread that to 2 episodes. We'll see. I'm not sure.
Yes.
But we'll try to get that recording done quickly too, so that we can plan it best.
Yeah.
And one of my coaching clients agreed. So that he was going to, we won't mention his name yet.
No, we'll keep him anonymous
he agreed
for now.
Yeah, he agreed, which I'm really excited about because he and I have a wonderful time whenever we get together. We spend more time laughing and just helping each other. So I just want our listeners to know it's going to keep going. It's going to be exciting. It'll hold us over till you're able to come back.
Yes, definitely.
And we're going to keep going. We're going to keep recording 2 a week. So we better close this one so we can record another one.
Yes.
So with that, I'm Dave Freund.
I'm Marisa Norcross.
And this was The Next Page.